Hello everyone. Today is our last lecture. So it's about Stendhal, the red and the black. And it's not our last topic according to our syllabi. Our last topic was Crime and Punishment by Dostoevsky, but I sent you this video lesson beforehand because I had prepared a lesson. And also I saw that Crime and Punishment is too long. And that's why I wanted you to read it beforehand. And now this is our last lecture with these cute butterflies, and let's get started. So these are three main contents in our syllabi: that French Realism, Stendhal and his literary activities, the red and the black. So firstly we will talk about this topic, and then we will discuss about the major themes like hypocrisy, love, happiness, hate, and so on in the red and the black. And analysis of characters, allegory, symbols and motifs and literary elements in the red and the black. We will talk about these things. So firstly, you should know about French realism. What is realism in French literature? So the expression realism, when being applied to literature of the 19th century, implies the attempt to depict contemporary life and society. And the growth of realism is linked to the development of science, history, and industrialization and commerce. And realist tendency is not necessarily anti-romantic. Because sometimes some people get confused about this. Realism and romanticism, they are quite different things, and they have some borders between them. But no, sometimes you can find some romantic motifs in realistic novels, and so these tendency is not necessarily anti-romantic. Romanticism in France often affirmed the common man and the natural setting. And the novels of Stendhal, the stress is at the end of the word, including The Red and the Black and the Charterhouse of Parma, address issues of their contemporary society while also using themes and characters derived from the Romantic movement. So I don't know if you know Honoré de Balzac or not. He was also famous representative of French realism, and Father Goriot is his famous novel. And if you have time after exams, you can read this novel too, because it's really interesting. Actually, I was hesitating to choose that novel or The Red and the Black, but I just decided to choose Stendhal, The Red and the Black, and I thought that it's more philosophical than Balzac's novel. But anyway, you can read this novel too. So the Balzac is the most prominent representative of the 19th century realism in fiction, and his main novel, the Comedy of Human, and this novel, the Father Goriot, including to this novel, sets, and it was not completed by him because he died. And it's really famous, and I think it's valuable a novel in French realism, not only in French realism, in the world realism. And then lastly, realism also appears in the works of Alexandre Dumas fields. Then, so Stendhal. I used English stress, Stendhal, but it's not correct. Stendhal is the correct pronunciation, because in French language stress is at the end of the word. So he was actually his real name was not Stendhal, but he used this pen name, and he was 19th century French writer, and best known for the novels The Red and the Black, that written in 1830, and also the Charterhouse of Parma, as I said before. He's highly regarded for the acute analysis of his characters' psychology and considered one of the early and foremost practitioners of realism. So the expression realism I explained to you, and now we'll talk about the red and the black. So I have some headings here for you, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 headings, and also subheadings according to fourth one. So here, the red and the black is really a symbolic names. When you read the novel, you will be aware of the main meaning of this title. I will explain, of course, but anyway, you should analyze it according to your own approach. And am I recording? I don't know. Just a minute. Yes. Sometimes I'm just worried about if it's recording or not. So, the red and the black. The meaning, red and the black, I said that it's a symbolic name. So, it's a historical psychological novel in 2 volumes by Stendhal, and it published in 1830. It chronicles the attempt of a provincial young man to rise socially beyond his modest upbringing through a combination of talent, hard work, deception, and hypocrisy. He ultimately allows his passions to betray him. The novel's full title was like that, The Red and the Black, a chronicle of the 19th century. This indicates its twofold literary purpose as both a psychological portrait of the romantic protagonist Julian Sorel and an analytic sociological satire of the French social order under the Bourbon Restoration. In English, black and the red and the black, scarlet and black, and the red and the black, they say, without the subtitle, so without the chronicle of the 19th century. The title is taken to refer to the tension between the clerical, it means black, and secular, red, interest of the protagonist, but this interpretation is but one of many. So they have several interpretations of the meaning of the red and the black. What does it mean? What's the symbolic meaning of these words? So now you have some image about this novel. Now let's talk about the major themes. We have several major themes: will to power, love and hate, honor versus vanity, hypocrisy and tyranny, happiness. So, will to power, what does it mean in this novel? Actually, I would like to know about your own opinion about these themes after you read this novel, but unfortunately, it's not the real seminar or real lecture. That's why it's just my turn to tell you about the themes. So, as German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche imagined it, the will to power, individuals' innate desire to dominate their surroundings and shape their lives, is a driving force behind all human endeavor. Since everyone has a will to power, he reasoned, people find themselves in conflict with others when their demands are not met or they are thwarted in accomplishing their ambitions or goals. So here, Julien Sorel, okay, in French pronunciations it's Julien Sorel's desire to shine is ferocious, and he wants more than anything to succeed and become a man to be reckoned with. His hero is the French military general and Emperor Napoleon Bonaparte. Many French people of the time admired him as a figure who changed both France and the world for the better through his vision. And Napoleon had no scruples about displaying raw might and imposing his will to power on millions of people. Julien's resentment stems from being thwarted in his ability to exert his will to power through his humble beginnings and uncertain social standing, and his entire life becomes a project in which he negotiates a social system that seeks to limit his ability to expand and achieve. The novel focuses on power relations between Julien and the other main characters, as well as power struggles between church and state. So you know this, maybe you know this topic from Daniel Defoe's Robinson Crusoe. They diversity between church and state and the separation of church and state. So and the other theme is about love. And love and hate we'll talk about. Any intense relationship involves both love and hate, and this is particularly true in romantic relationships, most especially when they involve Julien Sorel. His desire to feel love and be close with Madame de Renal and later Mathilde de la Mole is entwined with his unshakable resentment of both their class superiority and their emotional power over him. At the least sign of vulnerability, he must fight back and reassert his power. Because Mathilde and Julien have a similar makeup, their desire constantly battling with their pride and need to dominate and control, they fall into an extreme and perverse love-hate relationship. Madame de Renal, on the other hand, feels primarily genuine and passionate love for Julien. As for Julien, his pride, suspicion, and envy keep him from feeling pure love until the final moments of his life. And also we have the other theme about honor and vanity. So Julien greatly values the concept of honor, being recognized and admired for his exceptional abilities and inherent nobility. But for him, honor and vanity overlap to a dangerous degree. Julien's urge to be honorable, a trait he associates with his hero, Napoleon, is motivated not by the desire to help others or make the world a better place, rather by the desire to satisfy his vanity. He has what psychologists term grandiosity or an inflated sense of himself, and he does whatever he must to maintain it. Julien's vanity makes him obsessively fearful of being cowardly or backing down under any circumstances, even when doing so would be the wise choice or he doesn't particularly want the offered prize. As a result, he often abuses others, including those he loves, in his desire to boost his own self-esteem. Julien's idea of his duty to himself and his definition of what he needs to do to maintain his honor is a continuing thread in the novel. So the other theme is hypocrisy and also tyranny. We will talk about them together. Under tyranny, the state is run by only one person, a handful of people, or a small ruling class that imposes its will on the majority and garners the lion's share of the benefits of living in society while the masses are oppressed. Tyranny necessarily creates hypocrisy. And to survive under tyranny, individuals must be able to wear a mask or hide their true feelings and motivate so they will not be crushed by the forces that control society. The Red and the Black explores tyranny in France in the 1820s, imposed on the populace by the ultra-royalists working in concordance with the Catholic Church to claim back the power they lost during the French Revolution. It's not surprising the smart and ambitious Julien Sorel decides to wholeheartedly embrace hypocrisy to get ahead in society. The novel supports the idea that this is the surest way to get ahead and that Julien is in no way unusual for making his fortune through insincerity and posturing. And the last theme is about happiness. All the characters of the novel wanted to be happy and satisfied with their lives. The mayor of the Verrières wanted to be the richest and successful person in the town. His wife married him with desire to join the elite of society. Julien wanted to leave the Verrières forever and have more prosperous life. He wanted his talent to be noticed and exalted. Mathilde wanted to be happy with Julien, and she adored him and loved with all her heart. All the characters were doing everything possible to bring their dreams in life. Happiness for each of them meant something special. And let's talk about major characters. There are a lot of characters in this novel, of course, but I chose just 5 of them. But I would say that just 3 of them are the major characters: Julien Sorel, Madame de Renal, and Mathilde de la Mole. So these 3 characters are main, but Marquise de la Mole and Pirard, they are also like secondary characters. But of course, we should know about all of these characters. I mean, these 5. So Julien, the novel's 19-year-old protagonist, he's so young and possesses striking looks and intelligence as well as sensitivity, driving ambition, and overweening pride. Born into a working-class family, Julien is determined to become a great success, and his role model is the world conqueror Napoleon Bonaparte. Although he has no faith in God or the church, he aspires to become a priest and then move up in the ranks of the church hierarchy. Meanwhile, women find him irresistible, and his romantic entanglements, fueled by his pride and ambition, and lead him into grave trouble. The central character of the novel, Julien, is a 19-year-old son of the provincial carpenter. So, as I said before, he's ambitious, intelligent, and is admirer of Napoleon. And his protagonic memory gives him the opportunity to become a successful priest, but Julien wants only to be a soldier. He tries to balance the 2 career impulses by becoming a tutor and seducing women. Like any romantic hero, Julien falls in love with his conquest, but also never really has any idea what he's doing. What he knows of the real world comes from books, never experience. He is obsessed with becoming a modern-day Napoleon, but always lets those around him choose his own path. Blind ambition leads him to forego less glorious opportunities and true love. His failure to succeed in both love and life is also the failure of a society that has no place for him. And the second character is Madame de Renal. Madame de Renal is the beautiful and unassuming wife of the most important man in town, Mayor Madame de Renal. And she marries de Renal because he is the least obnoxious of the men who court her as a young woman. Together, they have 3 children whom she adores. She's about 30 when Julien arrives to tutor her children. Suddenly, she is in love for the first time, and her passion for Julien is all-consuming. She loves him even more than God. This liaison leads to tragedy for both her and Julien. Both an aristocrat and the wife of the town mayor, Madame de Renal is Julien's first love interest. And Madame de Renal truly loves Julien, and although she cheats on her husband, she is a symbol of moral purity and kindness. Unlike every other character, Madame de Renal is honest, compassionate, and resourceful. She's one of the few characters in all of French literature to die of love. And the third main character is Mathilde de la Mole, daughter of the Marquise de la Mole, is an aristocrat who is used to being fawned over for her standing, her beauty, and her intelligence. In return, she treats most people with disrespect. She has many suitors, but when Julien arrives as a secretary to her father, she develops a fascination for him that leads to a dark love affair. And Mathilde becomes pregnant with Julien's child and then embroiled in his previous romance. The daughter of the Marquise, Mathilde is bored with Parisian society and immediately takes a liking to Julien. Slightly imbalanced, Mathilde has a flair for the dramatic, and she is obsessed with her ancestor Boniface de la Mole and pretends that Julien looks and acts like him. She falls in love with Julien and urges her father to ennoble him because she cannot forget Julien's lower class status. And Marquis de la Mole is Mathilde's father and Julien Sorel's benefactor. The Marquis is an old-school aristocrat, but he also recognizes merit and nobility in people who are not of his class. Julien is one such person. The Marquis advances him in society and becomes his friend. In the end, Julien betrays him by having an affair with Mathilde, his daughter. The benefactor of Pirard and Julien's employer in Paris, so is Marquis de la Mole, he is a symbol of the dying aristocracy. He treats Julien as an equal, but only when Julien wears the right clothes. He is fearful of Julien's intelligence and ambition and ennobles him reluctantly. And the last character is Pirard. Once Julien goes into exile on the heels of yet another illicit romantic entanglement, he meets the director of a seminar in Besançon. And Pirard is something of an outsider and misfit himself, a Jansenist among Jesuits. So, after providing an expensive emotional shelter for Julien in his time of need, Pirard is forced to leave the seminary and becomes the person who recommends Julien as private secretary to Marquis de la Mole. I'm sorry for stopping. I'm sorry for pausing. So, we were talking about characters, if I'm not mistaken. No. Yes, characters. Yes, and now symbols. So red, black, they are main symbols, and we can see it from the title. And the other symbols, ladders, walls, even you can find other symbols that when you read, it's up to you. But I will make the exam questions according to these 4 symbols. So, red and black. The novel uses a great deal of color symbolism, beginning with the titular red and the black. Colors that work on several levels. Red may represent the military, specifically Napoleon and his army, worshipped by Julien Sorel. Even though Napoleon's army did not wear red, Napoleon is frequently depicted wearing this color. Black represents the church. It's the color of prized robes. So this is just one approach. You can approach differently. It's up to you. And Julien Sorel is caught between the red and the black. He truly wants to be a soldier, but the time for military glory has passed, and he thinks his ambition would better be served in the church. Red also stands for radicalism and the French Revolution and the ascendancy of the lower classes and the glory of Napoleon. Black stands for clericalism, or the political power of the Roman Catholic Church, which was first smashed by the Revolution but then re-established under Restoration. It may, by extension, symbolize restrictive power structures more generally. Red and black also may stand for Julien's two lovers. Madame de Renal is a red, since she has true passion and loves Julien above all others. Her love is sincere and uncomplicated and springs from a full heart. Mathilde's love is darker and more perverse, so she is the black. Like Julien, she is most concerned with power in relationships, and she sees intimate love solely a struggle for dominance. Red also symbolizes blood and violence here. Julien sees what looks like blood on the floor of the church at the beginning of the novel, which foreshadows his attempted murder at the end of the novel. Black is, in the end, symbolizes crime and death, and Mathilde's fascination with death and corpse. So blue is also significant in the novel. It stands for the nobility. I didn't write here blue. The blue riband or blue ribbon is mentioned several times. It's the highest distinction of the chivalry awarded by the king. The Marquis de la Mole has Julien wear a blue coat when he wants to interact with him as an equal. Mathilde and her friends sit on a blue sofa in the salon. Actually, I can add here blue. Why not? Let's add here blue. So so blue is also the symbol in this novel, and so Julien accidentally breaks Madame de la Mole's valuable antique blue vase, which, according to Madame de la Mole, came from her great aunt, the Abbess of Chelles, a present from the Dutch of the Duke of Orleans. Finally, Julien's corpse is wrapped in a blue cloak, which may mean he achieves nobility in death. So we have three symbolic colors here: red, black, and blue. And ladders are also symbol here. In the novel, ladders represent social climbing and act as phallic symbols. Julien uses a ladder to reach the windows of his lovers. He drags a ladder into Madame de Renal's garden to climb into her window. And in the case of Mathilde, she provides him with a ladder, at least showing him where it is, and he climbs into her window at her urging. Although Julien does not consciously use these women to improve his social position, his license with them serve that purpose. Thanks to Madame de Renal, Julien has the honor of riding as a guard in King's Parade. She also helps create his position of privilege in her house, and after Mathilde becomes pregnant, Julien's role as her baby's father provides him with a title, money, and an army commission. And the last symbol is about walls. Walls are a status symbol in the novel. Aristocrats surround their property with stone walls to denote what belongs to them and them alone, to earn others' envy and to separate themselves physically and psychologically from the lower classes. In the first chapter of The Red and the Black, the narrator notes, "The more your property bristles with rocks heaped on top of one another, the more claim you have on your neighbors, your neighbors' respect." The narrator goes on to describe Mayor de Renal's gardens as a network of walls, and admired because the ground over which they stretch was not bought at a bargain. So you can see these things when you read this book originally. And Madame de Renal may be the book's foremost wall lover, and also rejoices when he must requisition a big retaining wall for the town's public thoroughfare, giving him the happy necessity of immortalizing his administration by a wall 20 feet high and between 60 and 80 fathoms long. Again, the wall is a point of pride and power. So Renal is also surrounded by psychological walls separating from others and leaving him solitary and lonely, a frequent plight of social climbers who must leave their former communities behind, as the mayor must. And Julien's similar psychological walls, which close him off from love, friendship, and acceptance of humbler circumstances, destroy his happiness. So, we have also allegory and motif. Jail here is allegory and drama is a motif. So, Julien's arrival in jail represents the turning point on his life. Prison is like a chance to think over his actions and thoughts and finally understand himself. It's a paycheck for all his deeds, for the insincerity of feelings and lies to himself and to others. And drama is a motif here, as the novel has romantic mood. All the events are happening very dramatically, deep and playful. The young tutor and his shy mistress could have found enlightenment for themselves in 3 or 4 of these novels, and even in high school poetry. The novel have outlined what roles to play, giving them models to imitate, and sooner or later characters had to start play out the game. The love story of the novel is very typical for theater playing, when love is forbidden but still desirable and make a person to do crazy things. And now we have to talk about the literary elements. They are so interesting and necessary to know. The genre of this novel is novel, so tragic novel. And setting and context, it's setting in 19th century France. And what about narrator? The narrator is a third person narration. So it's a third person omniscient narration, and the story is told by an intrusive narrator who remains very close to the characters. So he is not the protagonist. The narrator is a witness all of these actions, and often expressing opinions or hinting all alternative scenarios and frequently addressing the reader. So it's like the Great Gatsby's narrator. So their team is a narrator and also one of the main characters and also witness. But here the narrator is not the character, just narrator, and he is witness all of these actions, and he can sometimes influence the reader, and he can sometimes share his own opinion with the reader. So sometimes he refuses to comment on particularly dramatic scenes, leaving the reader without resolution. And the narrator also shares the characters' varying and contradictory feelings and motives, which sometimes shift from moment to moment. And this approach supports the idea that people are a collection of selves. Then the tone and mood. Stendhal's novel does adhere to some conventions of a romance-based novel. All feelings, emotions are showed so deeply, so we can feel it together with characters. But it is also a very realistic novel because of the fact that we can see the depiction of social problems of that time. Protagonist is Julien, and antagonist is his destiny with all its problems and obstacles. Also in the role of antagonist can be the society that dishonored him and didn't see his talent. And the major conflict, the whole novel is built on conflict, Julien with his destiny, his dreams with the reality, his expectations with the result. And climax coincides with the final part of that story. Having arrived in jail, Julien faces a choice. He could have avoided punishment by gaining support from influential de la Mole, and for this he needs to constrain his nature to renounce his own personality, and he contemptuously rejects this option. So Julien signs a death sentence, refusing to stay in a world where it's only false. Only through hypocrisy he could achieve something, but he couldn't refuse proud directions and choose death. So, foreshadowing. A whole novel is built on foreshadowing about hypocrisy of society. Author shows a lot of examples from lives of the characters how bad is lie, insincerity, and dishonesty. So, and he tries to convey his idea to the reader to make him not to do such mistakes as did characters in the novel. And paradoxical is the fact of love between Julien and Madame de Renal. In a society of that time, it was unacceptable. So, personification. The nature of variety of places in the novel plays a role of kind of a person that listened to the characters. When they felt upset or felt other emotions which they couldn't open to anyone, characters went to the mountains or to a garden, and they could think over life. And while talking with nature, personified in humanity. And about the title, the most frequent interpretation of the title, The Red and the Black, is that red signifies the armed forces and black, the color of prize robbers, signifies the church. So as I said before. And the other, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5 quotes I've chosen. You know that it's the main step in our slides, in our PPT, that we choose several quotes, the famous quotes, and try to analyze them. And of course you can find something interesting, like other quotes you can learn, you can analyze for yourself, but just with these 5 quotes you can know many things about this novel, even without reading the original novel. So the first quote is by narrator in the book 1 in chapter 3. Since he was extremely polite, except on the occasions when one talked about money, he passed rightly for the most aristocratic figure in Verrières. So the narrator notes de Renal, the mayor of Verrières, is nothing like a nobleman, although he has aristocratic presentations. And he has become rich through manufacturing. He owns a profitable nail factory, and he married up with a woman more genteel than he. He is a materialistic bourgeois who spends most of his time thinking of money. His upper-class pretensions disappear only when his conversation turns to money. So when the narrator says the mayor passes rightly for an aristocratic figure in Verrières, he is indicating there are no upper-class figures in this little town. And the second quote is about, it's by Julien. So this is what rich people are like. First, they humiliate you, then they think that they can make it all up to you, be monkey business. So Julien said this when he disappointed in Mayor de Renal. Madame gave him a present because he liked him and wanted to make life pleasurable for him. Mayor found it out and became very angry at him and at his wife. He humiliates Julien and then, for not let Julien go, raises his salary. Julien was very sad because of this situation and lost all his respect to Mayor and to rich people in general. And quote 3, it's by narrator again from book 1, chapter 5. So, you can read this quote, and here Julien The narrator refers to Julien Sorel, a 19-year-old who is fine-boned, pale, slight, and exceedingly handsome. But this appearance belies his fiery nature, and he is determined to make his way in the world, no matter what. He has decided at this early age to practice hypocrisy to get ahead in society. And the quote 4 is by Madame de Renal from Book 1, Chapter 19. "I'm damned, who wouldn't be terrified at the sight of hell, but in my heart I don't repent." Madame de Renal reproaches herself when her youngest son becomes seriously ill, thinking God is punishing her for adultery, and she tells Julien they must stop seeing each other. And she also comes close to confession to her husband. When the boy recovers, she is still remorseful but cannot keep herself from Julien. She believes God will damn her to hell for her illicit love, but she loves Julien more than God. And quote 5. "So, you must know that I have always loved you, that I have never loved anyone but you." And this is this is by Julien Sorel, and from this quote you can see that how his love is poor to Madame de Renal, but he says these words in the jail, and even in the jail he can't distinguish what's right and what's wrong for him. And even in that condition, even in that circumstance, he confesses to himself that he loves that married woman so much that he never loved anyone like that. So it's about the human sins, human faults, and it's realistic faults, because in that period it was really actual problem with the French society that married woman can fall in love with other young men. And you can see this, let's say, tradition in other literatures too. In American literature, in the Kate Chopin's The Awakening, you can see, if you read it, you can see the married woman fell in love with a young man. And in many other countries' literature, you can see such kind of scenes. So it was really realistic problems of people's thoughts about love. So people love sins, and sins seems like sweet things to human. That's why such kind of, let's say in brackets, traditions can destroy society's psychology. And writers, realistic writers, wanted to prevent such kind of relationship between humans. That's why they wrote many novels about these situations. So it's up to you to come to the results. What did you learn from this video lesson? What will you learn with reading this novel? So it's up to you, your own psychology and your own thoughts, to get any results for yourself. And I hope that you will learn good things from this novel, and I hope that you will enjoy. It makes me sad to say that it's our last lecture, but it can be the last lecture for this term, and I hope that I will meet you the next term too, and we will have many interesting discussions about characters and novels, and I hope so. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks a lot for watching. Take care of yourselves, and good luck in your exams. Bye bye.